Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics including grief, parenting, health and wellness, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hi, Jenni.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. I'm so very excited about this episode.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
What? I don't like your tone.
So this is episode 5.
5.
So this is episode 5, and it's a little lighter. So episode 4 was about relationships, not grief. Episode 5 is about grief.
It's about death.
Death, but also about Disney, which is one of our passions.
Favorite topics to talk about.
Yes, I'm sure we could actually do a whole podcast just on Disney, like a whole series, but we're not.
There's a lot of Disney podcasts out there. I listen to a lot. Big shout out to all those guys. They're a lot of fun to listen to. We would totally kill it on a Disney podcast.
We would. We're just gonna do
We're gonna
a little
sprinkle
bit
Disney,
today.
right?
It's a little sprinkle of Disney.
Disney
yeah,
sprinkle.
And I don't know how we came to this topic. I think we were just brainstorming, and we have a list of topics, which actually reminds me, if there is a topic that you're interested in hearing us talk about, you're looking for information, for resources, just for someone to sort of dialogue about a topic, go ahead and send it to us. And
send us an email.
Post it on the Facebook or Instagram, but reach out to us, and we're happy to, if it's something that's kind of in our wheelhouse, we can quickly do that for you. And if not, we're happy to do the research and pull something together for you.
Absolutely.
So we have this long list of proposed topics for upcoming episodes, and one of them was about, I think, Disney.
Yes.
And grief, and I don't know, somehow we came here. So
the death in Disney movies.
Yes.
Disney movie deaths.
Yeah. Oh, I was talking about one of my intro to grief and bereavement classes. And there's always a day where I talk about sort of death and loss and sort of pulp culture and media.
Right.
And
that's a whole topic,
but it turns out Disney has pretty high ratings in terms of grief and loss and death and trauma. And I think that spurned this. So
makes for good storytelling. Very rich and deep storytelling when characters have to deal with a loss.
Sure. Absolutely. So Disney's really good at that. So today's episode, each of us have compiled a list of our top 10 what's the qualifier here? Most powerful, saddest,
meaningful
Disney deaths.
Right. I guess powerful is in terms of emotion.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
What emotions you feel, what come up to the surface when you watch them.
Yeah.
Maybe. For me, I went with sort of sadness makes you cry.
Okay.
But sometimes it's just a feeling of love for the story, love for the characters. Whatever makes you feel the most, I guess. All the feels.
Okay. So you have your list of 10. I have my list of 10. We're going to kind of compare them. We also have our associate producer in the room with us.
Get it right.
Associate
producer, Jacob.
Right.
Associate producer, Jacob, is with us.
Jacob's on the air with us. Say hi, Jacob.
Hi.
He's here. And actually, when we were doing some sound checking, we did have a sighting of the elusive teenager, but then when he realized he'd have to sort of sit and be still and quiet and not be able to drum,
we almost had him on the air.
We lost him.
Yeah.
He's out.
We almost
he
had him on
did
the
help me though with my list, so
okay.
I will.
Well, Jacob helped me with mine.
Perfect.
So we're gonna go top 10, starting with 10. You do a countdown.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's
my preference.
Sure, that's how I did it.
Do you agree, Jacob?
Agree.
Okay, great. So what was your number 10?
My number 10. So I went with Jacob. Do you agree with this number 10?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Gaston, his death. So I did include villains in my list for villain deaths. That's okay.
I did not. They don't make me sad.
Pretty different.
Well, I went with
not that I advocate that villains should die.
Right.
But when I was thinking of this list, I didn't consider villains at all.
I went with powerful, meaningful, could make you sad. Here's why. So,
well, doesn't he like? I should add a caveat. There may be some spoilers here, so if you haven't seen Disney movies, we may spoil some endings for you.
Spoiler alert!
Gaston dies.
Gaston dies.
Doesn't he like get thrown off the? Doesn't he fall off the building? Okay,
right. So I just wanted to start by saying Disney villains, of all the antagonists in stories and media movies, Disney villains are beloved. They're adored, really. And Disney's unique in that way. I mean, you can do character meets in Disney World, and there's lots of villains, and people go crazy about the villains.
That's a good point.
I like Gaston. So
Gaston has his own little like tavern in the Magic Kingdom, and he's a villain.
Gaston's Tavern.
Huh.
He's one of the best character interactions. We just outed ourselves as Disney World travelers. I guess we'll explore that differently. Yeah. We like to go to Disney World. Do you agree, Jacob? He's kind of a lovable, dumb, but sort of very evil villain.
Does your list have bullet points after each person?
Mine has. You're not supposed to look at my list.
Sorry, I don't have. I have a list of 10 things, and that's it.
Well, we talked about this in episode.
We have to say why.
We have to say why.
Yeah.
Right.
And those bullets are like the reasons.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the bullets are the reasons why. My reasons why are in my head.
Jake, I think you can actually move a little closer to the mic.
Okay,
there you
sorry.
go. That's okay. So when we talked about this in episode 1, where you just don't have an outline, remember?
I have a very bare bones outline.
Bare bones.
Everything I need to know is in my head.
I have a little more tissue on my bones. But
okay.
Right.
So what do I do? Do I now share my number 10?
No, I'm not done talking about Gaston.
We're going to be here forever.
So when I started compiling this list, I saw a couple different themes that I'll talk about. But he's a lovable, dumb villain with a fun song. He's got a funny sidekick. He gets pretty crazy-eyed during the final fight scene with the Beast. He gets very cocky. He's very, I got this. The Beast doesn't have anything to live for, so he's just kind of letting Gaston beat the crap out of him. But the Beast sees that Belle came back, and he sees something to live for, starts fighting back, and the look on Gaston's face is funny in that scene where he goes, uh-oh, maybe the Beast can beat me. You saw that, right, Jacob? So he's very sneaky, though, which makes him a great Disney antagonist. The Beast shows him a little mercy and says, leave, get out, go away. And then, blam, Gaston stabs him in the back, quite literally. But Beast doesn't actually kill him. He loses his balance.
No, I think he falls.
He falls to his death. Yeah. So he dies very sort of like Gaston should die.
Like his fault, basically.
So I also wanted to say villains die a lot in a lot of movies, but especially Disney movies, and that didn't come up on your list.
Well, and they die in very graphic ways.
They do. I have more about that a little bit later. But
all right.
Next one.
Right, and did you know about the skulls in his... You're a movie guy, Jacob.
I did.
Jacob's an Easter egg expert. When it comes to movies.
Pretty hard to find, but...
It's pretty hard to find, but I guess on previous versions of the movie, you can see an image of skulls popping up in Gaston's pupils
in his eyes,
he's falling to his death.
Yes, I did, because of one of the videos I would show in my class.
Oh, really?
That was one of, I think the video I would show was something about like the 10 most horrific or traumatizing Disney deaths.
Gaston was in there for you?
Mm-hmm. Actually, thinking about it, a lot of those deaths were villains.
So that was my number 10. Gaston.
So do I share my number 10 now?
Yes, you share your number 10 now.
Okay, so my number 10 was Bambi's mom. Because
number
it was
10?
Because it was his mom, and she dies.
That's it. Maybe she should have had an outline.
Maybe.
Well, what else is there to say? I don't want to be here for like 5 hours doing this, but because I did think about that because the other deaths on my list were more powerful to me. But I also did wonder,
or like in general,
to me. Okay. But I also did wonder, is it because the death of Bambi's mom is probably my first sort of Disney death? So I've had it in my I've just Bambi's mom dies. She gets shot off camera. Bambi's like, Mama, and can't find her, and it's really sad, but maybe I've become a little numb and desensitized to it. So whereas the other ones, the other movies, the other characters' deaths in Disney, I think I have more of an emotional connection to. Like, Bambi's not my favorite movie. I think I've only seen it once.
I understand that, yeah.
Me too, actually. Actually... Is
Bambi's mom on your list?
No.
Okay, yeah,
Bambi's mom's not even on my list. What I will say, though...
We're thinking of it, though.
We were thinking of it. It was on... It was on the initial version of Deaths to Consider. But the image that I have in my mind from Bambi and when Mom dies in that is the sort of slinking, low shoulders, very sad, tear-filled eyes of Bambi, the image of him looking so sad, looking for his mom. So that's pretty powerful. Very powerful to a lot of different people. I think that's probably on a lot of people's lists, right?
I think so, too. Yeah, for sure. So now, do we do number 9?
Number 9. So that I'm up next.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
I think I know the rules of the game now.
You don't understand how
I understand. But see, my answer for Bambi's mom was okay, even though I didn't have a 5-paragraph essay about it prepared.
Right. That's good.
He's shortening it. He's doing good.
Yeah, that was... I don't know. I wrote a lot about Gaston. Anyway.
I like Gaston a lot.
So, number 9 for me is also a villain, one of my favorite movies. And that's going to be Scar from The Lion King.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I always forget about his death.
Well, his death is also very traumatic. Doesn't he get mauled?
Oh, my goodness. Yes. So he's a very evil guy, but he's very cool. Again, here's the theme coming. He is another Disney villain with a great song. The villains get the best songs.
Right?
Be Prepared.
Oh, that is a good song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
I like that.
And he dies at the hands of Simba, pretty much. Simba gets revenge for something we'll talk about later. And he defeats him, and it's a really rough way to go. You're eaten by your minions.
Right, like it's the hyenas, right?
The hyenas were his minions. They were his buddies. They were his lackeys. And they turned on him.
So Disney sends a very strong message about what happens if you are a villain.
Can't even imagine how that would feel, right? You trust them for so long, but they just turn on you. Just like that.
So, number 9 is Scar for me.
Okay.
From The Lion
King.
So,
we know villains aren't on my list, so Scar's not there for me.
Okay.
So, number 9 for me is Anna and Elsa's parents in Frozen.
Oh.
We were thinking about that.
Are they on your list?
No.
No, so they're at the bottom of my list.
I was thinking about that too.
They're not, I'm not emotionally connected to them, right? Like, we never even see them in the movie. They're just... There's a photo of, or a painting, a portrait of them that I think we see reference to. Oh,
there's a flashback.
Maybe there is a flashback. Yeah.
But I don't think we actually see them too. I think we just see the boat.
Yes. And then it's just sort of, I think it's in the Do You Want to Build a Snowman montage.
I think it is.
That we see the boat like capsizing, and then we deduce from that they have died. And it's really sad because now there are 2 girls that are orphaned and they don't have parents anymore, and you can see sort of them falling apart even more as siblings. And so that's sad. For me, not as sad as the other ones, although parental loss is certainly very sad. And I promise we will do a not light episode on parental loss, because many children do in fact lose one of their parents at some point in their life. And
just like in
some point in their childhood.
Some point in their childhood.
Yes. I think the statistic off the top of my head is like 1 in 7 by the time they're 18.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of these deaths and a lot of these different movie plots, that particular death in Frozen set the tone for the story arc. Story arc? I said arch.
Yeah, you said arch.
Arch. You got boat in my head, right? No, that's arc too.
Yeah.
I'm a mess. Yeah. I'm just so excited to talk Disney.
You are, I can see it.
It's the story arc.
Right. So actually then the whole story is sort of set in grief. So too with Lion King.
Right.
And Bambi, right? So maybe a lot of these Disney stories and Finding Nemo a lot of Disney movies, sort of the story is set in motion following a death-related loss, or the big problem in a story is someone's death. And then what we see unfolding is the grief response to that, and how the individual responds in terms of their grief response, and how their support community responds too.
Right. And it's the story arc, but also the character development piece. We see how the character responds and grows through the story with the loss and what it means to them, throughout.
Right. Okay. So that was my number 9. What's your number 8?
My number 8, you can say it. Hold on. It is another villain. So go ahead, Jacob.
It's Ursula.
Yes.
Ursula.
So Ursula, I think probably I would say she has one of the most violent deaths. She gets pierced by the end of the ship, doesn't she?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I wrote there. So she's another beloved.
Oh, she has a good
Disney
song too.
villain. Another great song.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. I'm not singing. Poor Unfortunate Souls.
Poor Unfortunate Soul. I couldn't remember the title. Another great song. Another couple of funny sidekicks, Flotsam and Jetsam. Yeah, it's a great song, and she is again another beloved Disney villain. But her death, what's that?
Great movie overall.
Great movie overall. Love Little Mermaid, 1989. Started the whole Renaissance Disney.
I don't know why Prince Eric couldn't become a merman and live with her in the sea, and why Ariel had to go join his world, but whatever.
Little Mermaid wasn't very woke, I guess. Right?
No,
we can
not
talk
very
about
feminist.
This sometime else.
So, pretty graphic death,
yes.
right? You talked about that. Eric stabs her with the hull of the boat. And I visually saw that. I was probably 10 or so when this came out. Not that young, but I remember that, seeing it for the first time. Like, she just got stabbed.
Right, and if you think about it, if not your parents, or you're not your parents in particular, but if parents were thinking I don't want my 10-year-old seeing a rated R movie where someone's gonna get stabbed by the pointy part on a ship, which must have a word, I don't know. The hull, I don't know.
Let's go with hull.
Hull, yeah. The stabby part of a boat. I don't want them to see that and all the blood. But it happens in a cartoon. Bring it on.
That's fine.
Bring it on. Yeah.
That will allow that. Right. It's appropriate enough.
It's appropriate enough. So, and there's some research that's been done that shows that not just Disney movie, but children's programming is just as violent as some really violent movies and television shows that are geared towards adults. Mm-hmm. So we can see why when we think about even just the 3 villains that you've talked about. One falls to his death, plummets to his death after stabbing someone in the back. Another gets eaten alive by his minions. And this one gets stabbed pretty horrifically by a ship.
A jagged piece of wood at the front of a ship.
Yeah.
I like to point out that they're all villains, and the other ones on our list that aren't villains, more not heroes.
They're protagonists.
Yeah, they don't have such a brutal death like that.
Their deaths aren't as traumatic, right?
Yeah.
Well, we don't see them. So Bambi's mom, we don't see her die. She gets shot off screen.
That's pretty.
The parents, we don't really see them drowning. We see Ursula in the ocean, kind of, succumbing to her death in the ocean. We don't see Anna and Elsa's parents doing that. It's just implied. Nope. So good point there that not only do the villains in Disney movies have horrific deaths, but we see them, or we're at least privy to a lot more of that sort of scene. And the protagonists in Disney movies don't die so horrifically, and we don't see them so much. So interesting.
Getting shot is pretty brutal death. Anyway.
Yes, getting shot is a brutal death.
To take that off camera, that's just another thing.
Right. It's not as traumatic to see Bambi's mom die. We just hear, we hear
the gunshot, exactly. But we don't see it. So what did you,
I think we're at 7 for you?
We're at 8.
Oh my goodness.
Did we skip? We're here forever because you have a 5-paragraph essay for each of yours.
This is fun.
Number 8 for me was Nemo's mom.
Okay.
Is that on your list?
Coral, right?
Coral? Mm-hmm. Yes. That's on your list?
That's on my list.
How far down on your list is it?
I can't tell you yet.
Oh, I don't like that game.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Nemo's mom. I mean, Disney. Well, this is a Pixar movie, right? Disney
Yes, it's
Pixar.
Pixar. Disney Pixar counts.
Okay, good, because I have a lot of Pixar. So Disney Pixar jumps right in with Nemo, and again, sort of in the opening montage, opening sequence, similar to Frozen, we have a death right away. And Nemo's mom gets eaten by a barracuda, as she's trying to protect all of her babies, all of her eggs. And of course, only one survives, Nemo. But that sets the whole story in motion. And so Nemo's dad is this overprotective, Marlin, Nemo's dad is this overprotective dad who doesn't want Nemo to go to school, who doesn't want him to leave the anemone, who doesn't want him to sort of go out to the big, what's it?
The drop off.
The drop off.
Yeah.
Because he's probably so anxious because his wife was eaten by a barracuda when she was outside of her anemone. So the death sets the whole story in motion. Right. And why is it on my list? Well, because it's really sad. His mom dies. He never gets to meet his mom. His mom dies saving his life. And it's really sad. But not for me as sad as the other ones. Because I wasn't emotionally connected to Coral.
Right. So what we can do is I can share my thoughts about Coral's death and just let you know where it falls on the...
Then go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, extremely sad, very traumatic. Not only Nemo and Marlin lose Coral, but they lose brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
I didn't think about that. I've never considered that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes this death hard to watch for me.
The fact that he loses siblings.
Like, they would have had like a giant big family, but then just get narrowed down to two of them.
Yes, and people in a situation like that sometimes can have what we call survivor's guilt. A lot of guilt around the fact, like, why was I the one fish that survived and my 99 brothers and sisters didn't?
Right.
I don't know that Nemo ever explores that in his movie, but he might be having some of that.
Maybe he could benefit from some grief counseling.
For sure. Marlin, too. Absolutely.
So I agree with you. It sets the tone for the entire film. The story arc, the character development, the growth, Marlin's growth and Nemo's growth, and how he just has to let that tether out a little bit more. And it's very scary. Very scary to kick your baby birds out of the nest, right? Mm-hmm. So, are we on 7 now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, Coral is not 7. We'll talk about that when I get there. Number 7 for me is not a villain. Now, my villains were at the top of my list, numbers-wise. So, 10, 8, 9. Now I'm to protagonists.
Okay.
Yeah.
And number 7 is from Moana. It's Moana's grandmother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a sweet scene. It's, again, sets the tone for Moana's story arc. The dying words of her loving grandmother, who also is her mentor. Very empowering. She's sort of motivating her to go out and do this thing and return the heart of Tafiti, right?
Yeah.
And go on this quest and encourage her. The ocean chose her. Such a sweet moment. I think Disney seems to use the wise old grandfather character a lot in the sort of motivation piece.
I can't think of one off my
maybe
top of my head,
Pocahontas had that as well. Pocahontas. Very sweet scene, sad, and it's not lower on my list only because she gets reincarnated as a stingray, which is very cool.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's one of my favorite reasons, one of the reasons why I really like that movie, because of the reincarnation in it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like seeing who becomes what.
Yes. And I think that's culturally, for a lot of cultures, that's sort of an important part of their culture and their belief system is like reincarnation and that your ancestors are spirits that will guide you and that they may die, but they go to sort of another kind of level. A lot of Native American cultures believe that their life is comprised of a number of different levels. And this here where we're living, this is just one level. And when you die, you go to another level, but you sort of maintain connection and an ability to protect the people that you've left behind.
And that relationship was pretty clearly stated and showcased there, that She leaned on her grandmother as a protector, as a mentor, someone that, believed in her, and she wanted, her grandmother wanted Moana to succeed and reach her potential. Yeah. What was your 7?
Yeah. Mufasa
Really?
from
That's
The Lion
Mufasa.
King. Yeah. So,
You had Mufasa at 7?
Mufasa
Right?
is at
That's what I
7.
was
I know.
Wow.
The other
That's
ones,
really
because
high.
you will see the other ones I feel more emotionally and personally connected to. Very sad that Mufasa died. It actually is a horrific scene. He gets trampled to death.
Yeah.
Right.
And his son is right there kind of witnessing it. And it's his son's fault.
It's probably the most traumatic protagonist death, I think.
Think so.
Really?
In Disney movies, I think
Right.
it is. So it's really sad. And the scene of Simba going over to the dead body of his father and trying to wake him up, like that's really heartbreaking.
Right.
Yeah.
So really sad. Yes, so I'm sure it's on your list, but it's lower.
It is.
I just seem to not have
It
a
is on my
heart, so
list.
it's only 7 on mine.
Very low.
I
I wonder
agree
if
with
it's lower for you because you're a dad. I'm not a dad.
maybe.
Though
What's so sad, what's so powerful for me about that death is Simba's reaction.
Yeah.
Trying to get him to stand up, trying to wake him up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess that's it. It definitely evokes a dad
Yeah.
relationship for me.
Yeah.
Dad, and I have 2 sons,
Yeah.
so that's tough.
Yeah.
You're bringing the emotions here with this one.
This is what I
for me.
do.
Well, get ready
then
for
he
dads
just
at the end.
then he just lays with him.
Yeah.
Such a sad, I'm except he goes through the stages real quick, right? In that moment, like that.
We're going to talk about the stages of grief in another one.
He doesn't believe it at first, and then he understands it, and then he just lays with him.
Right. And then he runs away. And
then he runs away.
And so the rest of the film becomes really about a child's struggle with losing their parent, losing one of their parents to death, because he still has a mom.
Right.
And it deals with his guilt. The reason he doesn't go back to his pride is because of his guilt, because he knows he kind of... Oh, wait. Doesn't Scar also send him
That's what I
ahead?
was thinking. Doesn't Scar
also sends him ahead.
Scar sends him along
Yeah.
and says, never come back.
Never come back.
Think
But
he's-
I think he's also got a level of guilt, too.
Oh.
And this is not very far-fetched. I mean, this story is far-fetched, but the actual emotional content of it, not so far-fetched. A young boy could lose his dad and have family members step in that aren't exactly supportive and could make him feel like his only option is to kind of retreat. And maybe he doesn't run away and live with a warthog and a meerkat, but maybe he withdraws and doesn't connect so well with other people because of his grief and his loss.
I think it is pretty similar to what happens in lion prides, though. There's not usually more than one male.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
right.
that's true. Good point.
But again, defines the story arc, character development, sets the plot. But it's very, very, very powerful. It is on my list, but lower. So.
Like Simba getting revenge of Scar.
Right, exactly. That sets up
The whole storyline.
what gets Simba sort of back on the throne for the pride.
Because when you lose someone, there is no closure, and you never get over it.
Right.
And it doesn't just become something in your past. It becomes a part of you. It's part of your story, and it can, in a very strong and significant way, impact the rest of your life.
Right.
Yeah.
So moving right along.
And I'm not sure I like the revenge piece as much as I like avenge. Like we're outing ourselves as big Marvel fans. Maybe Simba's the avenger of his dad and the avenger of the pride in that moment when he defeats Scar, right? Does that make more sense? Okay.
Definitely.
So 6?
Yes. So 6 for me. Wait, you go first? Sorry.
Which is going to be nice and easy because...
Oh, thank goodness.
Number 6 for me was Coral.
Okay. All right. So Coral... Yours was 2... Coral was 2 more important than mine.
Yes.
Okay. Because I had Coral at 8. So 6 for me, hear me out. It's not a death, but we can grieve and have a grief response to any kind of loss when we lose someone to whom we're attached. So this is not a death, but it elicited a grief reaction that's the same as death. You're shaking. Josh is shaking his head at me.
Go ahead.
What?
Go ahead, say it.
I think
Why?
I know.
Do you have it on your list?
I have
you
a
do the same?
non-death
Yeah.
loss
perfect.
on
You might
my
have the
list.
same thing.
I was afraid Josh was going to be mad at me.
No.
I don't think you have this one on your list, but I think I have 4 on my list that are not deaths.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So I know which one is on your list. Number 6 is when Sully says goodbye to Boo. Oh, look at their faces, right? It's so
That's
sad.
a big one.
Like he
That
returns.
is like a big loss.
It's a big loss. And at
Right.
the end of Monsters Inc., we see that they've figured out it was, I think his friends gift him with Boo's door.
Right.
And the end of it, he opens the door to Boo's room and she says, Kitty.
Yeah.
And they see each other again. But up until that point, you're thinking they're saying goodbye forever.
Yeah.
These two people
Right.
that had an attachment, an emotional connection, loved each other. And so essentially, they're from different worlds. It's like a death. So
Right.
for me,
Mhm.
that was more powerful than the death of Bambi's mom, the parents in Frozen, Coral, and Mufasa.
Right. That makes
And
sense
also,
now.
we didn't see anything else from Boo's support system. I don't know what her family looks like. I don't know what she has. And it looks like all Sully has
Was anybody looking for her?
is right. Right. I question
Right.
the safety in Boo's house. So Boo and Sully's connection really was quite remarkable. And so it was devastating for me when they no longer could be together.
Right.
So that was my number 6.
Number 6.
It hurts to get reminded of that.
Sorry. Jacob's really sad right now.
That's such a sweet. I love Monsters Inc. I love Sully, and that relationship is so sweet. But it makes sense now why Mufasa is way high for you.
Right? Because you
Yeah.
both had such a reaction
Yeah.
to me saying that, and you didn't have that same reaction when I said like Bambi's mom or Mufasa. But you both like almost kind of teared up and both were like, oh, like you felt that
Yeah.
sadness again. Because grief doesn't just happen with death.
Right.
Okay.
So I also have a non-death loss, but not yet. It's actually pretty high on my list. I have for number 5, right? That's
Yes.
where we are.
No, aren't you on? Oh, yeah, you
Yeah,
go first, then
'cause
me.
Coral
Okay.
was-
Yep.
For me at number 5, from Brother Bear, Sitka. When Sitka dies. Sitka's the older brother.
I didn't like that movie.
You didn't like that movie?
No.
Was it the Phil Collins?
I think
People
so.
always badmouth the Phil Collins.
I don't know. I just
But when it
didn't
comes,
like that movie.
when it
Is it his brother that dies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
So
remember.
Kenai is the main protagonist. He
Mhm.
ends up becoming the big brother of Coda.
Yeah, that
right?
sounds right.
Yeah.
And then he's got, I can't quite remember the middle brother's name, but Sitka's the oldest brother, and that's what, again, begins the story arc and the character development. What happens? It's a death of sacrifice. It's a sacrificial death. Sitka died to save his brothers.
Survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt in it. And he wasn't a great brother. Kenai was the youngest brother, and then goes on to become a really great big brother to Coda, who's the bear and everything. And I think Sitka ends up being the one, the spirit of Sitka, I could be wrong, ends up being the one that turns him into a bear, right?
Oh, I didn't.
I think so.
I'm
We
not.
haven't seen that in a while.
Wasn't that a
I did
grandmother?
watch the death scene in preparation for this show.
You watched the death scenes?
Yeah.
Wow, you do a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
I just stroll in with my
He's
email.
into
He is into this.
She's
yeah.
into it too. It's okay. We're doing a good job at it. I think this is fun.
I watch the movies in my mind.
Yes. I will say, as you learned in episode 3, how much I love animals, and I was very happy to see that the bear didn't die in that
Why?
scene.
Because you have a bear?
Okay.
Yeah, we do have a dog that's like a bear, but yeah, I'm glad the bear didn't die.
Do you think that maybe you have a greater emotional reaction to that because you are a brother and you have a brother and you're the older brother?
Oh.
Like, I feel like I just didn't relate and connect to that movie at all.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Now that you say
Interesting.
that, I think I agree with you.
Oh, yeah. I'm smart
I also
sometimes.
relate
Sometimes.
to or enjoy human-animal relationships
Oh, yeah.
in movies.
Okay.
So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I like that a lot. So that was my number 5, Sitka from Brother Bear.
All right. My number 5 was also not a death,
Okay,
a little bit obscure,
Okay.
from Toy Story 2.
go with me here. Is that what you're saying? Go with me here.
Yeah.
Yep.
When Jessie is singing When She Loved Me, Why are you rolling your eyes?
Because Jesse's my number 4.
Oh, yay. Okay. I thought I was going to get a little bit of pushback on this one because that's so sad.
It's so sad.
Like no matter how many times you see
loss.
Toy Story 2, and I don't think I think Toy Story 2 is my least favorite of the Toy Story series.
Yeah, me too.
I'd have to watch them again. That's the one with
I would say so.
The
Al's Toy Barn.
Yeah. But that scene, Jesse's just so heartbroken, recounting how her person, the girl, used to love her and she used to be the center of her universe, and life was amazing when she was the center of this girl's universe, when she loved me. That beautiful kind of haunting song. Yeah.
Song.
And then she stopped.
Yeah.
And then she just was forgotten. And so Jesse really was left behind and tossed aside. And that's heartbreaking because none of us ever want that. You know, when we connect with someone and someone's important to us and we're important to them, losing that connection is devastating, even if it's not through death. Sometimes it's an even more challenging loss because there was a choice there.
How amazing is Pixar at very sweet, moving, sad musical montages?
I think the rest of mine are Pixar sweet, moving,
sad
I have
one on mine. And the
montages.
Something that's honorable mention that's not on my list is Cars.
Hudson? That's it?
Well, Doc Hudson, but the whole Radiator Springs, when they were thinking about what it used to be and everything, and I don't think there was any dialogue. It was all a montage. That was very sweet.
Of what it used to be and how it's different. Right. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
So are we on number 4?
So I want to add just a couple things. I'm on number 4. So 4 was Jesse for me.
Okay.
So I wrote that my notes here. It is like a death. She's never going to see her again.
Right.
The toys in the movie adore their kids.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to tie it into our pet episode. Like pets adore their humans unconditionally, right? The toys unconditionally love their human kids. And it was a death, essentially. It was a loss.
Yeah.
It's a very sweet, very sad scene. And you completely understood what Jessie was coming from as a character and her arc again. And some of the reasons she made her decisions in the plot. And then, Woody was able to pull from those experiences and those feelings to help her, go with her to be with Andy and become part of his toys and everything.
To make new connections, not to have closure, not to move on, not to replace, not like, oh, we'll just get another goldfish, but to connect with someone new, to sort of rebuild your new life now. So I think Pixar handles it well. I actually don't think I can criticize their handling of grief too much right now off the top of my head.
No.
So number 3 now?
No, I need your number 4.
My number 4.
Because my number 4 was your number 5.
So my number 4 is the end of Coco. Are you rolling your eyes because yours are on the list, or is it?
Because Coco's on my list.
Okay, so I think we're probably going to sync up for the rest of our list because we've watched these movies together, and I think usually when I'm like a sobbing puddle of goo after a movie, you're kind of right there with me.
I'm a movie crier.
We all are.
Very emotional.
Yes, you are, Jacob.
I'm not.
I don't think he is.
Oh, our oldest is.
The other one is.
So that's just such
He's
a sweet.
A big romantic.
Too. So I was going to share something. I'm not going to. So Coco, the way they handled the grandmother's death is so beautiful. Or she has great grandmother.
Great
grandmother.
Right.
And
Coco.
And we're led to
That's Coco.
It's Coco.
Right.
And we're led to believe that she has some sort of Alzheimer's dementia. She's kind of been fading away, which in and of itself is a really challenging loss to manage. But it's just so moving.
It really is.
It's kind of a beautiful death.
It's a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
That includes a beautiful song. I love Remember Me.
Right.
It's so great. Coco's probably I think it's my favorite Disney film.
I did cry during that one.
Yeah, because you're heartless.
Powerful.
If you don't cry during Coco at the end, you are heartless.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But
my goodness.
it's a really well done film for me, but I feel like it's too heavy. And so it's not like a movie that I could watch over and over again because you feel the sadness for the the people that I've already passed on to.
Right.
That kind of get to be reunited. So it's a powerful death scene for me.
I love the whole story and history about Dia de la Muerta. I just love it. I think that Coco is an amazing film, and that was my number 2.
Really, yeah. I mean, it's really high up there. They also Pixar did. Is that a Pixar or is that Disney?
Pixar.
So Pixar did a really great job covering sort of the cultural issue there, but I think they did a really great job exploring how a family like that approaches Alzheimer's or dementia, in that Coco, kind of just became sort of a fixture in the home.
That's what happened.
That is what happens. As she sort of shuts down, she just kind of becomes almost like part of the furniture. Not that people are mean to her, but life kind of happens around her, and there's this whole rich story of her life that gets forgotten about.
Right. Quite literally, that's the plot.
That is the plot. Yeah, and I think that's a really beautiful metaphor about what we do about not just people with Alzheimer's or dementia, but our elders in general. Just kind of forgotten about, and their stories and the importance of their stories is minimized. So all of that kind of comes out in the end when when Coco finally dies.
Right.
So for me, that was a really powerful scene. So far more powerful than Bambi's mom getting shot off screen or Mufasa getting trampled.
So let me get us reset a little bit. So I'll share my number 3.
Okay.
Which is Mufasa.
Oh, okay.
So that's my number 3. We already talked about that. And then my number 2 is Coco. And the only other thing I want to add is I think the idea about death not being the end, when there's like the spiritual world, they just sort of, they really just embrace that whole part of the Mexican culture.
Yeah.
And it's a place where families can come back together and be together. And the idea that Coco's now with her dad at the end, it's a really nice depiction too of some seriously good end of life palliative care going on.
Yeah, like the family's with her, like she's not, being rushed to the hospital or anything. It's just really nice. It's painful, but nice. So now all you have left is number 1?
I have number 1, but can I add one more thing?
Of course.
And this is what gets me the most right in the feels in my job too. When I talk to families who have just had someone pass away about the opportunity to be donors, is
for tissue donation. If you haven't listened to our
episode 1,
intro podcast, Josh works in the field of tissue donation after someone passes away.
And what I see is how the death or the loss affects the family, and then and that's what affects me the most. And in that scene, oh my goodness, what's the main character's name?
Miguel.
Miguel, good job, man.
This is why Jacob is here.
Seeing Miguel cry through his performance of Remember Me, like, broke my heart, melted it into just a puddle on the floor. That was amazing.
I think the reason why I cried during that part, because the death of Coco was towards the end, and it really gave you a lot of time to connect to her.
Right. To her family and to her importance in the family.
Right.
Yeah.
You saw the flashbacks of her dad singing to her and writing the song. Right.
Right. Sort of you saw sort of the power of her life, how important one person's life was, and how sad that is, regardless of the way they died, how sad that can be, even if you're like 99, or I've had patients in hospice who have been as old as 108. Even if you're that old, your life still had meaning, and it's still sad that it's over, and it's sad to think about all of the losses that she had in her life. So really profoundly sad.
Yeah. Beautiful movie, though. Go watch Coco. Sorry about the spoilers. Go watch Coco.
There's still a lot to reveal in that movie.
Yeah, we didn't ruin the movie for you.
So
I have 3 left. So I have number 3, number 2, and number 1.
And 2, and then we'll keep our mouths shut.
Can I ask you a question about your number 1? Is your number 1 an actual death?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm surprised that one of mine is not on your list. So number 3 is sort of the entire movie, the entire Pixar short. Can I include Pixar shorts? Well, I included a Pixar short. Bow, which I think was the short in the most recent one. And it's kind of a dream. So if you haven't seen it, I can't really describe it because essentially the mom eats her son so that he won't get married and leave the family.
Right.
BAO.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like this dream sequence, and you see the connection between a mother and her son, and just how much they love each other and their routines.
I remember how just a mess you were.
I was wrecked. Like I couldn't even watch the actual movie after that because I was destroyed because I'm a mom and I have 2 boys, and that's a big fear for me. I think for many moms, like what's life going to be like when they grow up? Are they going to, become really rude and not want to be with me? Are they going to pick a woman who doesn't like me or a man who doesn't like me? And are they going to pick someone and leave my family? And that mom was so horrified by that she ate him. And that wasn't, she ate him. And that wasn't, the sad part for me was just like obviously he didn't die and it all kind of works out in the end and there's a happy ending, but there's such sadness there because she did lose her son. She lost her child. That, our kids grow up and they're still our offspring. They're still our children, but they're not the child versions of themselves anymore.
Right.
And so that's not a death, but it's a loss. And so for me was profoundly sad in kind of a bittersweet way.
There's so much good imagery in that short. It's just such a nice.
It's really beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's horrifying when she eats him. But
and I remember looking around in the theater, going, "Did that just happen?"
Please don't eat me.
Yeah. Jacob doesn't want you to eat him.
Please don't eat me.
I promise. Just don't leave me.
So, what I liked about that was seeing how she sees her son, like this very. Like innocent, delicate little steamed bun. Dumpling that she needs to protect.
Yes.
Even if he's a grown man with facial hair and everything.
Right.
Like he was, ended up being. She still viewed him as this little baby.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I connected with that on a personal, emotional level. Yeah. So that was my number 3. My number 2, I'm really surprised it's not on your list.
Okay, now I'm on bated breath.
It's not a death.
Okay.
But it is. It's when in Toy Story 3, Andy gives away all of his toys.
Oh, I'm going to cry now.
Oh, like they're going to cry. Yeah. I think maybe you pushed some of these moments away deep inside and you forgot about them. Maybe he really is tearing up.
Yeah, that could have been in place of Jesse, maybe. I don't know. The Jesse one for me was really sad, but yeah, I didn't even think
that's again not a death, but he in that moment is giving away all of his precious toys that he was emotionally connected to, his childhood. That's right, Jacob. He's giving away the representation of his childhood to a new child who's going to have fun, but he's really saying like, my childhood is over. Like I'm an adult now, and this fun part of me I can never go back to. I can never go back to just being a kid who runs around with Buzz Lightyear and Woody and plays with dolls all day. I now have to go do these other things, and that's great. But boy, is it sad that we have to leave our childhood behind.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that moment too when he doesn't realize Woody's in the box.
That's right.
Oh,
yeah.
My goodness.
Right. So he reaches. Right. So he wasn't intending to give Woody away. He was going to keep Woody, sort of for sentimental reasons, and
take him to college.
And Woody ends up in the box, and the little girl sees him, and he can't then be a jerk and take Woody away. Right. So he wasn't prepared to lose that part of his childhood. And it's just, it does. It hits you right in the feels. So that's my number 2.
Thanks, Jenni. Well,
I think you're going to have to say number 1.
Can I just say real quick?
I think our number 1s are the same.
Can I ask you a question not related to both of you? Did you see the Toy Story 4 trailer?
I did.
I did.
What do you think?
I don't remember it now.
Yeah. I like the idea of being a trilogy. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I'm not prepared emotionally for that movie.
Yeah. No. I'm a little indifferent. We'll see what happens. Pixar
I guess I must be
really
indifferent because I watched it last week, I think, and I don't remember it.
Looks funny. The trailer looks funny.
Looks funny, but I think it's going to miss.
All right, let's stay on focus.
Stay on focus. I'm sorry.
So I'm willing to bet all of our money that our number 1s
match.
Should
we say it at the same time?
Uh-huh. Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Ellie from Up. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Ellie from Up. I don't know that there is a more endearing, sweet, beautiful, sad scene in all of Disney movies.
And real.
Right.
You know, it's not bears, it's not lions, it's not deer, it's not
it's life.
Princesses. It's a real husband and wife. And they tackle infertility and potentially miscarriage. Was she pregnant? And then she wasn't?
I think she was pregnant.
I think so, yeah.
And so, like, boy, they tackle real stuff in that whole montage.
Really
you know,
do.
these two people who meet and fall in love as kids and then have these dreams of being together and building a family. And you see them suffer loss, and you see them not being able to build their family, and you see them really have a lot of sadness and devastation. Like, you see a really honest depiction of grief and loss, and how that piece, that miscarriage, that infertility, that is huge for so many couples. And we don't talk about that in society. You know, I see a lot of people in my practice who struggle with that, and there's not permission for them to talk about it. So for so many of them, their friends don't know, their family doesn't know, but here's Disney or here's Pixar saying, we're going to put it in our cartoon. And we're going to put it in the opening montage, and we're just going to leave it there for people to kind of feel and see. And so that in itself, like, that's grief, that's loss. But then you see them live their life, and you see him lose her, which statistically is not what happens most of the time. Most of the time, it's the men that die earlier. If you look at sort of life expectancy, and we could have a whole episode where we kind of talk about why that might be. But I think for so many older men who reach that point, just like Carl did, they're completely unprepared, and they react the same way Carl did, which is, I have no idea what to do. And so I'm really angry at the world, and I just want to sit here and do nothing and be sad and be really mad because this is not the way it was supposed to be. And so it was such an honest depiction of grief and loss.
I can't watch this scene without crying. I think it's so sweet and so endearing. And it's done with zero dialogue.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love the journey. It's really an amazing journey that Pixar takes us on. And we start with being introduced to Ellie and Carl as kids, and how different, and how Ellie pulled him out of his comfort zone, and they were climbing inside the house that ended up becoming their house. And then we see it switch to no dialogue. Again, beautiful music. I love the up theme, and it's such great imagery. You understand on a deep level where Carl ends up being at his life when he meets Russell and decides to attach 1,000 balloons to his house, and how he blows the leaf blower in the face of the contractor there, and he gets all mad and grumpy, and you understand so well why he's in that space.
You do. And also, I forgot to say that Ellie knows she's dying. And Ellie says goodbye to him, which is sort of a really great depiction of kind of what hospice and end-of-life care can be. You know, she'd reached kind of acceptance and gave him their journey book. And he doesn't find it until later that it says, go and make your own adventures now. But, you know, she says goodbye to him.
Right.
And that doesn't make it easier for him. So even though they knew she was dying, they knew that they were approaching the end, it didn't make it easier for him. Right. So they also tackle anticipatory grief. So I think I think I probably ranked them based on sort of, can I watch that scene without crying? I think the ones that are, you know, my 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, probably I can't. Right. You know, they evoke emotional responses in me every single time.
Coco and Up for me, absolutely. My number 2 and number 1.
So we went through our list of 10.
Yeah, we got to the end.
Is this a long one? Are we like at an hour and a half right now?
No, just a little under an hour.
Okay.
I just have one more thing to add about Up. I had written notes about in the middle of the montage how they lost their unborn child and they were grieving together, and just there's a couple things that stuck out to me. Seeing Ellie sit there with her eyes closed and hair down by herself, looking like the sun was coming down on her face and the wind was blowing her hair, and he came out there and comforted her. And then when she was sick and in bed, and he wanted to take her on a trip and sent in the plane tickets in the balloon, just like she did to him when they were kids. It's just so powerful and so sweet.
Yeah, it was a real love story.
Right.
Yeah. So Disney does what I think more people need to do. They put grief. They put death out there for us to talk about. I think where we kind of fail as a society and where we often fail as professionals and as families is then we don't talk about it. We watch a movie like Up where an entire family and kids watch a scene like that. And then we walk out of the movie theater, we throw away our popcorn bucket, and we're like, what'd you think of the movie, kids? And we move on. And we miss this really beautiful opportunity to talk about death, about grief, about loss, about villains and protagonists and morals, and what happens to someone when their father dies, or what happens when their sibling dies, or what's it like to be an only child and know that you had other siblings but they died. All of those conversations Disney and Pixar put out there for us. Like they put them right in front of us saying, please talk about this. But we don't because we're so uncomfortable about it. And we're missing a huge opportunity to kind of to learn about it, to become really more skilled at expressing our emotions and supporting each other and allowing us to have an open dialogue about a really important topic.
Use it as a vehicle to have that discussion,
Absolutely.
Right? If your child says, when Coco's grandmother died, it reminded me of when grandma died or something.
Yeah.
Okay, and you talk about that.
Right.
And especially Pixar and Disney have very, very young audience.
Yes, they're gearing them towards kids.
Yeah. And if they put those kind of problems in their movies, that's just encouraging their parents to talk to them about it.
Yes.
Right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And it also then would prepare kids for when they have loss in their own life.
Exactly.
If they've already seen Coco and they've already talked about dementia and Alzheimer's and a great grandmother dying, that when someone in their life, like a great grandmother, has a dementia or dies, we can use Coco, that storyline, as a basis for the conversation. Remember what happened to the great grandmother in Coco. Right. That's what's kind of happening to your grandmother or something like that.
Right.
We can use them, but we can only use them if we talk about them and we don't just watch them and forget about them.
Absolutely.
So this was our point behind doing this. I mean, yes, today's was a little bit lighter, but not really. We talked about death for an hour.
Right. That's kind of what we do.
I guess
but
the approach to it was lighter by talking about Disney, but ultimately there's still a point here, which is you've got all of these opportunities to talk about death and grief and loss with your kids. So take hold of those opportunities. Lean into that. You were just going to say it.
About to say it. It's
lean into that. It's uncomfortable. We had moments here where
TM. Lean into it. TM.
I'm going to trademark that. No, I actually think Brene Brown probably should trademark it.
Okay.
Phil Dunphy.
But
nice Modern Family take, Jacob. I like that. Nice job.
That threw me off track, so I don't know what I was going to say now. It was probably something pretty profound, but
I'm sure it was.
Super profound.
So guest host Jacob, do you have anything to add on this, buddy?
No, not really.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah,
that was what I was going to say, is that we were here talking about sad things today. We were here talking about them with our 10-year-old. Again, we tried to have our 13-year-old, but this was beyond his attention span.
Right.
But when we had sad moments, I reminded you guys of some sad moments, and you both had emotional reactions. I saw the tears well up in your eyes. The clinical social worker in me knew that I could ask a certain question or say something, and I could push you both over the edge and make you cry, but I chose not to. But we are okay, right? We had this conversation about death, about grief, and we're here still surviving at the end of this conversation, and we laughed and we shared some tender moments, and it was okay.
Yeah,
I think.
Absolutely.
Right. So do that with your families too.
Absolutely, and lean into it and talk and discuss and enjoy these films. We mentioned briefly that we're a big Marvel family full of Marvel fans. There's I can't quite remember the name of the video or whatnot, but somebody did a YouTube video of the final scene in Toy Story 3 and replaced all the characters with Marvel characters.
I've seen this.
And Stan Lee when Stan Lee died. So that's Stan Lee was a loss, right? For us Marvel fans and the MCU and everything. So that's a pretty powerful video. Go ahead and search for that if you're a Marvel Disney fan. Anything else today for us, Jenni?
No, that was it.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for today. Thanks again so much for listening. Big thank you to you, Jenni and Jacob, for being our guest host today. You can learn more on this by just go ahead and Googling Disney deaths, and there's lots of articles and different lists out there.
You were definitely not the first people to tackle
Right.
this topic. I would say you can learn more about this by having a conversation with your own family about, deaths in Disney movies. Or next time you see a movie with your children and there's a death or there's grief or there's loss, talk about it after.
Absolutely.
That's how you can learn more.
Well, if you want to talk to us more, you can send us an email at changingpodcast@gmail.com. Go ahead and follow us on Facebook at Changing Perspective Podcast, and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can check our website out at changingperspectivesblog.com. Go ahead and subscribe or follow the show so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Lean into it, right?
That's right.
All right. Say bye, Jenni.
Is this my thing now? Do I just say bye, Jenni, at the end of it?
Go ahead.
Bye, Jenni.
Say bye, Jacob.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Disneybird Studios, Whitman, Massachusetts. Visit Disneybird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/DisneyBird Studios.